Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Golf of America, man, where we're getting her done under the Florida sun. Everything from hot rods to fishing rods, some outdoor cooking, various repairs, upgrades, and make-ins. Make sure you guys subscribe if you're new. Hit that like button. Let the world know what we're doing here. YouTube might be a little confused with the amount of variety we're offering, so just help them out. Please watch the full video, hit that like button, and subscribe. Today we're doing something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and that's basically get the Monte back on the road. If you guys have a classic car, it's kind of like having a boat, especially if you don't have the money to just get it all fixed at once, or the time to drive it around. This thing sat basically the whole time I was in the Coast Guard. None of my family took care of it or turned it on or made sure it didn't get flooded. So basically I got handed back like a rotted car and got her running again. And then a series of hurricanes and floods and stuff shuffled her to the bottom of the list. But today we're making that step to get it back, because essentially I want to get this thing roadworthy and then start fixing sort of some of like the cosmetic rust issues and get it looking real rad so we can just go out and enjoy it and cruise it and show it at places. But I'm not going for like a full-on like boomer OEM resto or resto mod with like $20,000 worth of brakes. I just want the thing to run, because in all reality these days, like a Volkswagen Jetta has more performance than this. I'm not going to make it more than it is what it is. I just want it to be a fun little hoopty to go cruise around and lobe out at the intersections in. Today we're going to be focusing on one of the probably most overlooked parts of just a little entry-level street build like this, and that's the fuel system. Now, fuel systems can get wildly expensive, but you can also build a pretty decent one for, I'd say, maybe under 300 bucks, and that's what I have here. Once I got rid of the manual fuel pump, it eliminated a lot of problems, particularly off idle and cold starts. So if you're having troubles with that, definitely consider getting an electric pump, guys. My whole setup basically has just a few components. I have a Mr. Gasket inline fuel pump, and then it comes up here to a fuel regulator, and then I run it through a gauge so I can see what my pressure's at, and then it goes right into the carburetor. I do have an inline fuel filter that's right before the fuel pressure regulator up here under the hood too, so that way I can monitor fuel quality, and also if it's primed. It's really nice if you haven't driven the car in a while to be able to see if you're at least getting gas. One of the major things on my list is an electrical issue I'm having with this little distribution bus that I run some of my auxiliary power off from, and I am doing a video on that, so make sure you check it out. It's a great way to run power to little things like gauges or lights or cooling fans or a distributor or a fuel pump like we're working on today. It's just a nice little way to give the right amount of power, have it wired up nice and clean, and not light your car on fire. There's nothing wrong with the fuel system on this car. The reason why we're fiddling with it today is I want to reroute the fuel line. I've never really been a big fan of how I have it going over the header here, because realistically, if it sprung a leak, it hit the header and the whole thing goes kapooey. Also, it's really heating up the fuel. The reason I put it over here is because back in the day when I did it, I really didn't know where else to mount the fuel pressure regulator, and it just kind of worked. But now I find myself needing to replace this fuse box because I'm having intermittent power issues on my distributor, which won't really be cool if we're trying to get back on the road. So I'm going to replace that, and I found a really nice unit on Amazon, so make sure you guys check out that video. But in order to get the place to mount that, I need to move this regulator, which also involves rerouting this fuel line on the front of the engine. So that's what we're doing today. The plan is we're just going to take it out, we're going to feed it up kind of like the more traditional route right around the passenger side of the timing chain cover. Then I'm going to use some of these holes that are already available on the alternator mounting bracket to secure the fuel pressure regulator. Always start off by disconnecting your battery leads, guys. I do both. I don't just do the negative, because all it takes is something landing on that battery to ground it out, and then you could complete a circuit somewhere in the car and make it hot again, especially on something old like this where you don't know where the wires are going. So yeah, disconnect them both. It's actually a good time to clean that battery up, and if it opens up, top it off with some Dissy. Next step is gonna be to take the fuel line off the carburetor. This is another good reason to have that gauge. It's at 0, so I know there's no fuel pressure in here, guys. Relieve the pressure in your fuel system before you go taking this off so you don't go crazy daisy and fuel all over the place. Well, I got the fuel pressure regulator out, pretty easy. Now it's just time to put it all back together. I am gonna get a new fuel filter. I put this fuel filter in about 2 years ago, and the car really hasn't driven besides just evacuating and then running it, you know, once a week to sort of keep the motor spinning. And look how much sediment and stuff that just like 10 years of sitting put in the system that this thing was able to filter out, even this cheap little inline filter. I'm gonna get another one, and we're gonna mount it down here, sort of where the fuel line bends up under the alternator. That way, you know, the air will go to the top and it'll prime nicely, and I'll have a nice visual location to look at my fuel quality, and it'll be really easy to replace in the future, because when I undo it, it'll just drain all the fuel down instead of up and on the engine. Fuel line is stupid expensive, but you do want to make sure you have fuel line. And my recommendation is, if it's 2 to 3 years old, regardless of the amount of miles on your car, replace it, because it does degrade. Ethanol is pretty rough on it, and they do make a specific fuel hose for ethanol, so make sure you're getting that. I don't drive this that much, so I seek out non-ethanol type fuels, and I keep a minimum amount of fuel in it, so that way I don't contaminate my fuel, I don't really get water in the system, and if someone wants to jack it, they probably got about 3 lights and they're out of gas. I took the mounting bracket off the fuel pressure regulator, that way I could articulate it a couple different ways, and I think I found a tentative spot. I do gotta swap the straight and the 90 for the inlet and the outlet on there to kind of make it all work, but I think it's gonna come out pretty clean, guys. Let's go ahead and get those fittings swapped, and I'm also going to clean up this fuel pressure regulator.
I say she burns, and every damn night that heat returns. I knew she was wrong the moment she grinned, like sin wrapped in silk and soaked in gin. Sin wrapped in silk and soaked in gin. Sin wrapped in silk and soaked in gin. She ain't dead if she still leaves marks.
I got everything back together, and I gotta say I can't be more pleased with the results. It looks a lot cleaner than it did before. Also, I eliminated probably about a foot of hose, which is great because that's just less resistance in the system, and another less foot of hose that I have to potentially replace down the road. The fuel filter was a little bit different shape. It was smaller, but I think that's gonna help it prime. It's actually a marine inline fuel filter, but if you know anything about marine motors, they run some fuel through them, so I'm sure it's going to be able to handle the old Monte. One last thing we got to do, since we did let a lot of the fuel out, is I just want to make sure it's primed. So the way I do this is I disconnect the fuel line from the carburetor, I pull the fuse for my fuel pump, kick on the ignition, and once I got it inside of a container, the end of the fuel hose, I go ahead, put the old fuse back in, and just pump a little bit out till we see that nice clear fuel and that fuel filter fills up. Then we're going to go ahead, put it back onto the carburetor, tighten it down as good as you can. And guys, this is like your car, your time to customize it. When you put these hose clamps back on, put them facing in a direction that's going to be not only aesthetically pleasing, but somewhere where it's going to be easy for you to access them in the future, right? Because you might be trying to take that fuel hose off or replace that on the side of the road because it went on you because you didn't replace it after 2 years. With the fuel hose hooked back up to the carb, we'll kick that ignition on one more time, and I let it run for a good 10 minutes and just check for any leaks. I run between 5.5 and 6 PSIs on this Edelbrock 650. So it maintained it, and I'm happy with firing it up. I know it's probably most of y'all's favorite part, so here's a cold start. I'm gonna get out the way, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope y'all learned something today. Let me know what you want to see in the comments. Peace.